Welcome to A Little TLC, the podcast where we embark on an enlightening journey through the ever-evolving world of education. I'm your host, Heather Volchko, and I'm on a mission to empower educators and change makers to skillfully navigate the intricacies of serving our most exceptional students. Every month, we'll be exploring a unique and timely theme in a mini-series format, whether we're digging into inclusive teaching practices, addressing student mental health challenges, or exploring the intricate connection between our personal and professional lives. Each month offers an in-depth exploration of weekly topics that truly matter. I hope you're ready to be both challenged and inspired because this is A Little TLC. So last week we were talking about just the closure as a concept. Like, what does that mean? What does it look like? How does that show up for behavior analysts? We had this whole conversation around even just like the difference between kind of case management for behavior analysts in clinic and in-home settings, and then just the natural academic kind of closure that happens in May for educators on top of all the, transient populations too. We landed last week kind of at that moment of going, but man, there's just times that it doesn't work. Like we just don't have closure. There's just kids that kind of come and go whenever, or decisions are made that are outside of our control. And my goodness, like that's so stinking hard. So that's what this week is about. This week is all about those unresolved endings, those moments where it isn't given to us and we kind of have to find our own closure in our own ways. And, kind of however that shows up. So I'm excited to see where this conversation goes. Back again with us this week is both Alex and Marla.
Hello, hello.
Hey, everybody.
All right. So we've all kind of hinted at these moments that we don't get closure. We don't have it on our own. Like the situation doesn't give it to us. So what do we do? And I do ask this question knowing that all of us are still learning this. So none of us are experts and like, here's your 5-step process. Like that's not where we're at. So what are some of those tips and strategies that you've kind of grown into or kind of played around with to try to find your own closure?
Well, I'm still trying to figure it out myself.
Sure.
It's as I mentioned last week, it's not easy. You gotta tell yourself at the end of the day, you did all you possibly could to help that client out and do the most that anybody could. Chase parents out for parent trainings, teachers, follow a child all throughout, where his ABA career takes him. And sometimes at that moment you don't get that closure. It's when they leave, it's sad, but at the moment I'm still trying to navigate that myself. And
Yeah.
all I've been able to do is just kind of tell myself, hey, like you did the best you possibly can. You ensured that you gave everyone the tools required in order to help that child be successful. And that's really where I'm at with it right now, and maybe later down the line, I will get that closure. Maybe one day that family will reach out to me and tell me, "Hey, check in, let me know how he's doing," and that'd be awesome. But for right now, all I could tell myself is, "Yeah, you did great," and you gotta keep pressing forward because if you get stuck in that one chapter of your life, you're never gonna move past it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I'm with Alex on that one too, that um there is not a plan that or a strategy that I use to get closure immediately. Sometimes it takes time, and sometimes I just have to kind of what Alex was saying too, just have more positive statements of all the positive things, the little victories that I saw in the time that I had with that client or with that other professional. Because sometimes things do just end abruptly without any warning. And I think that's just kind of the field that we're in, right, guys? That
Mhm.
like, the mental health field, the behavioral health field, we're constantly helping others, putting others before us. And life is always just happening. And sometimes things just end. And so um, I've have I need to there's no way to I think to like fully prepare for that, but just be aware that it can happen and what are some things that I can start putting into practice right now, such as like having more positive thoughts, giving myself some of that social praise, right? Of like, okay, I
Mhm.
know I did well. I know myself. I know the work ethic that I put in it, behind on my cases, with my clients. Um, And hopefully, like I know Alex, I think sometimes maybe you've had success of like meeting families afterwards and they're giving you that positive, confirmation that, hey, that things are going a lot better. Um, but yeah, I think it's just for right now, just kind of having those positive statements for myself and just kind of, just having those more of those times, like having more of those moments of just like reflecting and knowing that you did your best.
Yeah, and I mean, that
Yeah,
lack of resolution has so much impact. I mean, like, it impacts us professionally, it impacts our students or our clients, like, we don't have that continuation of services, or they just kinda fall off a cliff, or we end up in all these, like, self-doubt loops in our own heads. I mean, like, how do you see it? How does that show up for you in your spaces? Because I know, like, Marla, you're doing a lot of in-home, and Alex, you're doing a lot of clinic work, but it's also school-based, and so kind of like all of these different spaces. I know in education, for me and some of my context, it was just a kid didn't show back up, and that was that, right? Like, so some of my guys missed education because they were incarcerated, and so then there's no continuation, there's no closure, it just happened and they're gone, and they're also not accessing their education either. So then when they come back, they're further behind. We're trying to play the catch-up game and, like, fill in those gaps along the way, just because, education inside of, the juvenile justice units looks very different than inside of, my classroom or our, public or, therapeutic school settings. So, I mean, we've just have consequences for them in their own learning, that they've got these weird splinters and gaps and things just because they didn't have a continuation of their education while they're also, shifting facilities. So for you, like, what does it look like? What does, like, that lack of closure look like maybe on your client side? And then we can also shift over and talk about, professionally and ourselves as well.
That's a very good
yeah,
question. How does that
that is a yeah.
leave our clients? I mean, one of the things I was just thinking about when you're asking us this, Heather, is how I don't know if this is true to you too, Alex, but a lot of the times I teach my clients tolerance, right? How to
Mm,
tolerate non-preferred tasks, how to tolerate change, how to tolerate transitions, how to transition from high preferred activities to very low activities. And as an analyst, you come up with some, effective coping skills that you think that's appropriate for their age. And I'm over here thinking like, man, like those are some strategies I should probably adopt, for me. I don't know if Alex does the same thing for you or Heather when in the classroom, right?
yeah.
But like they have such a hard time, just like I think any other human does, right? Like,
Mm.
I don't know if anyone here can say that, oh, change is awesome. I love change. I mean, not really, right? I would assume that, um, but I see them in distress, right? Like I see them like, oh gosh, like when these changes are coming up and perhaps you're not getting closure on that before, like it does bring distress. But, you're asking, you know, how does that leave our clients apart from just, what I've seen, like maybe distress, but like, I don't know, like, could there be a sense of like they feel pride of the work that they've done? Are families happy with the services that we're providing? Um, yeah, I
I think
guess
it
I
just
hope,
depends on like how it happened, right?
yeah,
Like
I guess, yeah,
if it was abrupt, then it's just like, oh, okay, you're never
yep,
gonna know how the client felt, like,
true.
losing someone that, maybe they worked with for years, that, just like you said, we're a
That's a
part of
good
their
point.
routine just as much as
Yeah.
they're a part of our routine. And
Hmm.
it's like when you have a child that has a deficit, um, and not be able to tolerate changes, then it's like you kind of throw the world into a spiral. And but if we're doing our job well, which I'm sure you are, Marlon, and I know I
I
am,
hope so.
but we are working on that, and maybe they can cope with it when those abrupt changes.
Right.
But it just really depends. And for me at least, like I've had a couple of instances where a client ended up leaving, and it was mutual, it was nice, and it's like it sucked that they were leaving, but at least I knew that the handoff was good, that they were
Mm.
going to be in a good place. But there's some that they just left. Like it
Yeah.
was Monday, get an email, very informal email saying services were done. Tuesday, that's it, And it's
Yeah.
like that's all. There's no thank you, there's no appreciation for all the years of service or anything like that. Um, those are the ones that, it's like I would have to seek that closure myself. Like I would have
Hmm.
to reach out, maybe call them like, "Hey, what's going on? Or is everything going good?" But, it also just depends on how the I guess the terms were when things ended. So was it like a messy breakup, or was it,
Yeah.
mutual and like everybody understands? So there's just so many factors when it comes to, this situation. And again, I've had, clients just reach out to me and they're like, "Hey, things are going good." I had two twins that, they left services just with us because they just couldn't continue doing the drive from where
Hmm.
our clinic was located to their house. It was a very far drive, which is understandable. And we also didn't have anybody that could go to them because for the same reason. Um, but they reached out to me earlier this year and they're like, "We finally got services." They had discontinued services with us for a year. So they had been without services for a year. And I checked in. I was like, "Oh my God, are they okay?" Because, you always got to worry about regression or anything like
Right.
that. And, I was happy to hear that both the boys were doing good. Everybody was in a good place. They were striving, persevering in school and they were doing great. So, that instantly like brought all like, that worry and, concern that I had for them just completely alleviated. But I mean, there's still some that I'm still thinking about to this day, and it's been years. I'm just like, man, I really
Yeah.
hope he's doing good. But again, it was a situation where it was a mutual, like we had to just, part ways because the family was moving out of state. And but like, I still wonder about him because us as practitioners, we just put so much of ourself into it. And
Yeah.
depending on how long you work with that child, or it's it's like part of you is leaving, and that sucks. So I
Yeah.
guess it's just, sometimes you just gotta really either seek out that closure yourself, or just move on and just know you did your best. But I'm still struggling with that part. I still like I'm like, oh man, like I still think about it. So there's a lot of just what ifs and wondering. I drive myself crazy sometimes thinking about all those things.
No, but you're not the only one though,
No.
Alex. I'm the same way, Heather.
Yep.
I'm sure what is has gone through that too. I mean,
Hmm.
different settings, different people, different capacities, but again, that's something as humans we go through.
Yeah, I mean, I'm even thinking of, I mean, like I've been in school with my students and some fight breaks out and there's a suspension that's the result of it. And then they're gone for a few days. And then in those days, the school pushes the paperwork and now they have a change of placement. So, like, a lot of times the students that are doing those things are students that I'm investing tons of time and energy and resources and communications and checking in with them and working with their families. And like, it's just a deep dive, it's a heavy lift case. And then a lot of times those end up in some blow up disappearance and change, like, and it's just gone. And so that is truly, I think we had talked about, it was last week or in the hangout, we were talking about, just like, how do we, I don't know, like, it's almost like it's contingent on our rapport. Like if we were actually good with whoever it was that is now gone, then we can have those conversations and be like, hey, are you good? Are you cared for? Are you, in my context, we're asking like, are you safe? Are you, like, are you actually taken care of? Even if it's, school is not going to be that picture at the moment. Like, are you cared for? And that's received well by students and families who knew that like me and my team were working with them and we were trying to figure stuff out and we were an advocate for them regardless of the current moment. It's the ones that were like, this school, this whatever, right? And we just get lumped in with, all of the policies and procedures of, the school setting that we were in. And then we just kind of get, what's the phrase, like something about the baby thrown out with the bathwater or something like this. So it didn't matter. And so like the communications were gone. If we called, if we emailed, we weren't going to get a response because, damage is done and story is closed. Like it's whatever. But that is like, there is all of those moments for our students and for our clients and what that looks like for them, but that's also us too, right? Because I used to hate those moments where I'm like, gosh darn it all, like, and I'm never going to see the kid again, right? So if it was like I've had students incarcerated for life sentences on stuff that happened on the block and then that's done, right? Or they're in for so many years that they're certainly not coming back to school after, that period of time is over. And so it doesn't matter. And that's not even like give them a phone call, whatever. It's, show up at the unit if I'm going to have any kind of conversation or communication with them. And so it truly is just done, like broken. That is it. That's the end of the story. And so I think that's where, I mean, for me as a professional, I start having all those what ifs. And did I do right by them? And did I do everything I could? And what was the last conversation we had? And how did we, how did that pan out? And, all of those just professional wonderings, which I know both of you have hinted at in your own ways, right? You just start wondering, what's the family think of me? How's the kid doing? Is their next team serving them well? Does the next team have what they need to be able to serve them well? The number of students that moved into change of placement or moved out of district that I would give my card and say, give this to your new teacher, right? Like I will answer any phone call or email that they want to send me. Advocate for yourself. We've practiced those skills, right? Like if you're good with me, I'm good with you. They can learn to be good with you too, right? Like, and trying to rub that rapport off onto whoever that future team may be, even though I don't know who it is. And there's no like formal transition process of the new team and all the collaborations and this all like handoff and everything. It's on the behest of the kid to be able to manage that, in the midst of all the transition too. So
this week, it's Hangout Week. Immerse yourself in an exclusive interview featuring practitioners just like you who are sharing their valuable experiences. Whether you're seeking motivation, knowledge, or fresh perspectives, our interviews cover a wide spectrum of topics, even some unplanned ones. We have found that pre-recorded interviews offer the flexibility you need to listen, pause, and revisit the conversation whenever is good for you. And did we mention you can earn continuing education units too? But that's not all. By becoming a member of the TLC Network, you gain access to professionals committed to walking this experience together. Learners get access to valuable webinars, enriching workshops, and engaging guest hangouts. Supporters gain access to our vibrant online community, monthly Q&A sessions, and joint discussions in a little PLC. Clever, right? Either way, you'll be among the first to access our podcast and blog pairing every week. Nurture your curiosity, broaden your perspectives, and ignite your passion by joining us for this week's Hangout.
I don't know, like, how do you handle walking through transition just as a professional, if it's colleagues coming and going, or it's just kind of that unresolved, like, I don't know, like, how do you keep your own thoughts kind of in check without like running away with all of those incredibly negative self-thought things that all of us are prone to in our profession? But yeah, how do you do that? What does that look like for you in your context?
I ride the chaos.
Say that again.
I ride the chaos. It's
Yeah.
very hard to fight against the chaos. Like
You
people coming,
know,
people going. And
yeah.
it's just
Mhm.
like if I fight against it, I'm just gonna cause myself more damage than good. I just ride with it. I go with it and I navigate it as best as I
Yeah.
can. But
I
That's
was
that's
just
really the
gonna
only way to stay
say,
sane.
yeah, I was just gonna say, like, you kind of have to go through the chaos, right? Like, I remember where you and I used to work at, Heather. The first thing that I was told was like, okay, are you ready to join? Are you ready to get onto this fast moving train at a high speed? And it's not going to stop anytime soon. Are you ready to hop on it? Like, you just got to jump on it. And it's kind of like, okay, right? That comes with transitions and, introductions and like, just transitioning things or taking on new things and all that. You kind of have just go through the chaos. I think of that. I don't know if you guys have seen, it's like a gif of like, I don't know if it's like a cartoon, but it looks like a dog and like
A dog and
the
everything's
room
on
is on
fire.
fire.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
I'm fine, and it's like drinking a
Everything
cup
is
of
fine.
coffee. Yeah. And it's just burning up. And like I identify myself with that because
Mhm.
if it's too quiet and too smooth, I do question it a little bit. Like, okay, why is this is too good to be happening right now? Like, I don't know. Like, this is a calm before the storm. Something's about to go up right now. Um, but yeah, but in all seriousness, um, how to handle those transitions? Well, like kind of what I was already talking about before, if it's hard for our clients to expect and tolerate change, for us it's the same way. Maybe we just hide it better. I don't know.
Mm,
And deep inside we're like, oh gosh, but um you have to do the best that you can, and it's something that you kind of have to just push yourself through. I don't know if it's the same thing for you, Alex, or for you, Heather, but again, it's just one of those things that you may not fully be prepared for, but you have to be ready in case something like that does happen.
I think after a while you kind of get a bit jaded
I was just
with all
thinking
these
that.
transitions.
You get
So
what?
it's just
Jaded?
Oh, jaded. Okay, I thought you
Yeah.
said been
Yeah,
jaded. I'm like,
yeah.
you know
So
how to be
you get a bit
jaded.
jaded with all these changes after a while. I think I used to be, bright-eyed and bushy, like, oh, everything's good and believing the best in people. But after seeing so much turnover with a lot of the RBTs that have come and gone through my clinic, seeing so much turnover at some of the schools that I've worked at, and seeing how that affects the clients in clinic base and my clients at the school. It's at a certain point you just kind of get jaded and you're just kind of like always expecting the worst. And then when something great happens, you're always pleasantly surprised. But that's kind of like the, I guess, mindset I've developed, which I've never been that type of person. But I mean, this whole I guess career choice has definitely pushed me in that way. uh so I just kind of expect the worst, and hope for the best.
Yeah.
And if it happens, it's always great. And there has been a lot of moments where we get like a brand new RBT, and we're like, I don't know, they're not like they don't seem like they got it. But then with all of our feedback and guidance, they completely surprise us and end up being some of the
Mm.
best. So it's I guess it's just like be cautiously optimistic always, because
Yeah, that's so
it's
cool.
because you never know what can happen. You never know what you're gonna get with your staff or the people you collaborate with. It's just like I mean, I had an IEP meeting yesterday, and you know in my perspective, I felt like this school thought that we were like the devils, because
Mm.
we came in here, we were like, hey, you know, we're not going to work on academics. That's not what we're here for. We're here to work on behavior reduction and teaching the skills to be successful in the classroom. And I was very clear about that. And when I said that to the special education teacher, she looked at me and thought I was crazy. But when I told her this is my job, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, um, she looked at me like I was a bit crazy. But in this IAP meeting, almost from November till this month, she was talking our praises.
Well, I think what we're talking about is we've really danced around, like, there are ramifications of not having closure for the people that we serve and for ourselves as well. So next week, let's pick up with kind of what we were just talking about. What are those the impacts that it has on us as professionals? And then based on those impacts, what do we do? Where do we take that? How do we handle that? How do we manage that? Both ethically, to our board of ethics that we do report, but also to ourselves, and kind of how we have learned in our own professional practice to walk through tough things. I'll catch you next week.
Good.
Hey, before you jump back into your busy life, we want to invite you to head over to thresholdlearning.org, your one-stop destination for all things TLC. Here you'll find our blog with this episode's show notes, our ever-expanding bookshelf of resources, and anything else we've talked about. Trust us, there's a ton of benefits waiting for you to explore. Just head over to thresholdlearning.org, click on network, and we'll see you on the inside. Sharing the podcast with your colleagues is the easiest way to support the show. You can find us at Threshold Learning TLC on Facebook and Instagram. A personal recommendation is by far the best way to share the podcast. Let them know they can listen on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere else they catch their podcasts. Just be sure to leave a rating and review on your favorite platform. You can email us at info@thresholdlearning.org. We always enjoy connecting with fellow educators and champions for educational justice. You can find everything you're looking for at thresholdlearning.org. See you there.